Good morning, class. How is everybody today?
Good.
Oh, it's nice to hear voices again. Okay. We still got a few people staggering in. Okay, good. Okay, I think most, if not all of us are here now. So, oops, not quite. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First off, welcome to the spring semester, Principles of Biology class. Things are starting off a little different than we all expected, I'm sure, but we'll get through this. Hopefully we'll only be on Zoom for the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be back in the classroom. My name is Diana Davis. I'm your instructor this semester. I am very flexible about what you guys call me. You can call me Diana. You can call me Professor Davis. You can call me Ms. Davis. You can call me, excuse me, Professor, oh, I forgot her name. That works too. I don't care what you call me. My personal pronouns are he and her. I like to start off the semester with a very important statement, and it is my anti-discrimination statement. So I said she, her, not he. In my class, I do not want to see any bullying or discrimination. I do not care what your skin color is. I do not care who you love. I do not care where you were born. I don't care what religion you are or if you're no religion. None of that matters unless or until it interferes with your education. If something is interfering with your education, then I care. Part of my job is to work very hard to make sure that you guys all get a good grounding in the principles of biology. And that is what is most important to me. So if you feel like you've been bullied or discriminated against, please let me know. If something is interfering with your ability to complete the class or to get a good education, please let me know. There are lots of resources out there. I can direct you to those resources, help you find those resources, or help you deal with these problems. I am here for you. We are a class together, and it is all of our responsibilities to make sure that we get through this semester. Okay. Now that I've gone through that, obviously you guys all found Zoom. This is great. If you are new to Zoom, I wanted to go over a few things that you can do in Zoom. So either at the bottom of the screen or at the top of the screen, there will be a menu of icons that have things like mute and video, chat. Those are all things that you can use to get my attention. So if I'm rambling on about biology and you got lost, feel free to unmute yourself and tell me what's going on. There's also an option to raise your hand that is usually at the bottom. That's another way to get my attention. You can put comments in chat. I don't always keep up with the chat. If you guys are talking to each other, I might not see questions. So feel free to interrupt me at any point if you need clarity. Another fun thing that can be done is called annotate. And if you click on annotate, you have an option to draw. And you can draw lines or colors. There are stamps, there are shapes. And so you can draw smiley faces while we are really ugly smiley faces. While we are still at the beginning of the semester and doing Zooms, I will try and put up some kind of screen at the beginning of class for you guys to look at. You can see today I did a cartoon. This is a black and white cartoon. If you're sitting around waiting for the class to start, you're welcome to color it. You're welcome to talk to each other. You know, there are all kinds of things that you can do in Zoom that you may not be familiar with. Okay. Etiquette is important here. Assume that at least one of your classmates, probably several, has somebody else in the room within hearing distance of the computer. It can be their child, it can be a spouse, it can be a grandparent. Please be considerate and watch your language. I struggle with this one myself, so I understand if we slip up and use words we probably shouldn't, but please be aware of that. If you've got a dog or a cat coming in the room, if it can be seen on camera, you're going to need to introduce us. I like seeing people's pets. Cameras are encouraged, but not required. It does help for me to see students and see your responses. The other thing I want to talk about in Zoom is breakout groups. So these are groups that the computer system sets up. We'll be doing these regularly to try and break up the lecture so it's not just me talking. And I will pop my head into these breakout groups periodically, see how things are going, with no warning. So be aware of that. And in fact, our first thing today is going to be going into breakout groups. I want you to make a new friend. So I'm going to put you in breakout groups. I think I'm going to put you in groups of 3 or 4. Introduce yourself to the other people in your group. Find out what name they prefer to be called, what their pronouns are, and then try and find something you have in common with them, other than being a college student. You're going to then introduce one of your new friends to the class. So figure out who in your group's going to introduce whom. And let me remember how to do breakout groups. I think I have to go back here. All right. Okay, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes in your breakout group to make new friends. Okay. I think we've got all the groups back. I hope you guys all made a new friend. Does anybody want to start by introducing somebody in their group?
I can introduce somebody.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to introduce Jasmine. She and I both graduated from Oxnard High School last year, and she works at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Okay, great. Thank you. I see Alex.
Oh, well, Kate just introduced me, so I want to introduce Kate as well.
Oh, great.
I didn't meet her in high school, but we both graduated from the same high school the same year. And she works as a lifeguard.
Okay, good.
Hi, I would like to introduce Cayman. She uses she, they pronouns. So they have a dog named Tyson. They live in a family of 6 and they have to drive to their job. That takes 30 minutes to get there. And yeah.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Cayman, do you want to introduce Alex? Okay. Did we lose you? Looks like we may have lost Cayman. All right, who'd like to go next?
I can go next. Jasmine B, because I saw there's like 2 Jasmines here, but I'm going to introduce Jasmine B. And she went to Sanapo High School and she has 2 pets, a dog and a bird.
A dog and a bird. What kind of bird? Did you find that out?
No.
I have a cockatiel.
A cockatiel, cool. I teach sorry, there's this stuff going on in the chat. And I'm trying to, there we go. I teach at another college. I teach a course on birds specifically. So I know a little bit about them. All right. I see Maya, you wanted to introduce yourself?
I'm Maya. I tested positive for COVID.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's a fun fact. I play basketball for the school.
Oh, cool. That's
it.
good. I hope you don't have a bad case of COVID and you get better soon.
No, I don't. But I probably won't be in class, like in person.
Well, none of us are for the next month, so
Okay.
hopefully you're better by then.
All right, good.
Anybody else wanna?
Can I go?
Okay.
So my partner was Janine. She goes by Nini. And she was born in Sacramento. She's a psych major and she works at a coffee shop.
Okay, great. Coffee shop's a good way to learn about people's psychology.
Oh yeah.
I can go for
Okay.
Lola. Okay, so Lola is 19. She's a pre-nursing major. She plays the cello and she likes to thrift.
All right, great. Who else wants to go?
I could go.
Okay, thank you.
I'm introducing Jocelyn and she likes to plant and she goes by she, her.
Okay, great. I thought I saw somebody. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I can go. I'm introducing Brianna. She likes to plant as well, and then she also goes by she, her.
Great, thank you. Lots of quiet.
I'll go.
Okay, thanks, James.
So I'm introducing Kaylee. She plays soccer and she goes by she, her.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else want to go? I've gotten a couple of direct messages from people saying that they're in a noisy setting, so it's kind of hard.
I can go next.
Okay, thanks.
My name's Adam, and I was talking to Caesar, and we actually did kind of have something in common, which was the type of music we listen to. So that was pretty cool.
What kind of music is it?
We were just talking about like rap artists. I mean, I was kind of telling them that I'm into different types of music. I don't really like discriminate what people listen to, but me and him kind of had a few rap artists that we're specifically into, so that was cool.
Oh, that is cool. Good.
I can go next. Like Adam said, we do have something in common, like the type of music, and but I also found out that he's graduated from Pacifica and that he's 23 years old.
Okay, great.
I'll go. I'm introducing Desiree. She likes to go by Des. And we both played soccer, and she goes by she, her pronouns.
Thank you.
I'll do Lizzie. Her full name is Elizabeth, but she goes by Lizzie, and she goes by she or her, and she also played soccer.
Good. Anybody else comfortable speaking up? Okay, well, at least we got a good start there. The next thing I'm gonna want to do is talk about the Canvas site. Is everybody, okay, I know it's hard for me to ask this. I know how to ask this. I can create a poll. Whoops. I don't know if you guys can see me. Just takes me a second. All right, I launched a poll. Okay. All right. Looks like most of you are familiar with Canvas. So we're just going to go over it really quick. And if you aren't familiar with Canvas, we can go over it in more detail at the end of today's class. So let me find the Canvas screen to share. Oh, come on. Quit that. There we go. Okay, so this is the homepage of our Canvas site. I suspect most of you guys have found this already. This has the information about our video conference class, how to find the class, how to behave in class. One thing that this does not, oh, it does mention, I do record the lectures so that anybody who couldn't make it to class can watch them. They get posted on YouTube. So please be aware that we are recording this. If you look over here to the right, you'll see a couple of things on the list. You guys should see in your page that you have an intro survey to take and a week 1 homework assignment to do. And those are both due, the due dates here at the bottom, on Sunday before midnight. All of our assignments are going to be due before midnight on whatever their due date is. If you go to announcements, you can see a shortened list of the announcements. You click on them to see a longer description. I post announcements kind of randomly. So you do want to check into the Canvas site periodically, a couple times a week, and see if there are any new announcements. You can find your assignments under assignment. You can see these first two, the intro survey and the week 1 homework, are available for you guys. These are not available yet, so you don't have to worry about those. I'm not going to click on grades because I don't want everyone to see all of the grades, but that's where you find your grades. You can also find sites through Pages, which again has just this big long list of all of the pages that are available to you. The syllabus is here. This is what is called a liquid syllabus. So it has functional links. So if you want to find, for example, the textbook, you can go here and click on the link. The syllabus is kind of our agreement. It is what I use to tell you what we're going to discuss, what my expectations for the class are, and how I'm going to do things like grade. So take a look at this at some point. We're going to go over some parts of it during this lecture, but feel free to spend some time looking at it. If you have questions, this is a good place to start. And as you can see, I've got some information on how to succeed in the class. I've got a lot of links for help. Some of them are through Ventura College. For example, Ventura College's behavioral help. If you need accommodations, if you want to schedule a counseling appointment, makeup policy. We are living in a very challenging time. So I encourage you to get your assignments in on time. If you turn things in late, you're going to have points automatically deducted for each day. So you can turn things in late and get some credit. But if you know you're not going to get an assignment done on time, send me an email before the assignment is due and ask for an extension. I do not need to know why. You can need an extension because you're sick, because your job called you in to work extra shifts at the last minute, you were hungover. No excuse is necessary. Just ask for an extension and you automatically get an additional 3 weeks to complete an assignment. This is true except at the end of the semester when everything is due the last week of the semester, period, because I've got to get the grades in. If this happens a bunch of times that you need an extension, we should get together. We should talk about what's causing you problems, why you're having difficulty getting your assignments in, and what we can do to create a plan so you can catch up. Down here at the bottom is a tentative schedule of lecture topics and assignments. So if you're wondering what we're going to be doing the week after spring break, here it is, photosynthesis. Okay. I tend to okay, I have a direct message. Hang on just a second. Okay. I tend to organize class in weekly modules, and I've got a lot of information here. So we start with the course orientation. A lot of it is stuff that we're going to go over, but it also has more sites for help, a printable copy of the syllabus, and a copy of what I call the CRAP checklist, which is going to be important later on. Advice on how to study. I've been teaching at the community college level for well over a decade now. And I've got some really good ideas on the most time and effort efficient ways to study. I don't want you to study more. I want you to study better. And again, we've got lots of resources for students. Then we have this week, every lecture, there will be a file, lecture terms and concepts. I strongly encourage you guys to look at this before lecture. It's going to list the terms and the ideas that we're going to talk about in that lecture, and it gives you an idea of what I consider most important. And the assignments are here as well as under assignment. And I am seeing, so here's a link to the class YouTube site. And I forgot to put a link to the textbook. We do have a free online text for this class, and I'll add that link later this afternoon. The text is an OpenStax, so it's, like I said, it's free. It's kind of a supplement. So the material it's going to be on quizzes and exams is going to be from the lecture. You can use the lecture terms and concepts pages to get an idea of the most important things to study. The textbook is kind of to give you another mechanism, another way to hear the material. If you don't understand it in class, reading the textbook will help. You can skip anything that we don't talk about in class because I'm not going to test you on that. I also have some links up under resources for students to several YouTube channels that I find are very good at putting out videos that also re-explain the material. Sometimes it's not that the material is hard, it's that the person doesn't explain it in a way that it's easy for you to understand, and hearing it in a different way can really help you understand it. So I encourage you to do that. Okay. We're going to have weekly quizzes and homework assignments that are going to be posted on Canvas. You're going to have 12 of each through the semester. I'm only counting the best 10. So if you miss one, we'll drop it. Don't have to worry about that. We are going to have 4 unit exams, so regular exams through the semester. We're going to be taking those hopefully in class. The best way to study for those is to look at the quizzes and homework assignments. That's going to give you a clue about the kinds of questions I'm going to ask. Then you go back and you look at those terms and concepts that I post for each lecture. There's also going to be a cumulative final exam during exam week. The exact date and time are to be determined. And then the last thing we're going to do is a project. So this is an opportunity for you to spend time exploring some concept of biology in a little bit more detail. I will give you some possible topics because I kind of have a good idea now about what makes a good topic and what doesn't. You can talk about different organisms, although I'm a little picky on that one because I find people sometimes like to do penguins because penguins are cute and that's all they talk about. You can do diseases, you can do concepts that we're not covering in lecture. There's a lot of diversity here. That CRAP report that I showed you in Blackboard, it's a worksheet that helps you determine how trustworthy your sources are. So you'll need to fill one of those out for each of the sources that you use. You can use you will need to use 3 sources, one of which can be Wikipedia. So we're fortunate in biology that Wikipedia is pretty reliable. There are some topics that are controversial, like abortion, and sometimes Wikipedia gets that, gets kind of hacked by people who have opinions and they're trying to express them as facts. Those are a little less reliable. You're going to gather a bunch of information on your topic, and then you present what you learned. How you present your information, you have a lot of flexibility here. You can present as a presentation in class, even if we're on Zoom still. You can write a paper. You can create a graphic novel. And I have, I'm pretty sure I bookmarked the website that students have used in the past for that one. You can write an original song and perform it. You can create a TikTok video. You can come up with some other way to present the material, as long as I pre-approve it. So I'm very, very flexible on that. And the project is going to be due in March. So it's not going to fall during the end of the semester when everybody's worried about final exams. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Okay. In that case, we're going to start the meat of the semester. All right, all of my lectures start with an announcements slide. Usually what I do is I tell you what the week's assignments are. This week we have the intro survey, which counts as a quiz, and the homework, which are both due before midnight on Sunday. I list major upcoming events like the next exam. The next exam date will always be on this one. Our first exam is scheduled for February 7th. And we also have the project proposal, which is due January 30th before midnight. And that is a topic and how you plan to present it. So there are two things you have to provide at that point. Okay. So what is science? This is a science class. So what is science? Does anybody want to take a stab at a description of science? And this is why I hate Zoom. People tend to be introverted more on Zoom, especially at the beginning. Okay, that's fine. Science is an evidence-based understanding of the natural world. It's not art, it's not philosophy, literature, religion. There's some science and psychology, but there's also some non-science parts of that. Science is being constantly updated and refined. One of the big differences between science and other fields of understanding is that if you tell a scientist that they're wrong about something, that's a normal part of the process of science. Most of us are going to go, ooh, I was wrong about that? Okay, tell me more. I want to know more. Scientists are all curious. That's kind of an underlying trait of all scientists. When we talk about science, you'll hear the terms hypothesis, law, and theory. A hypothesis is an educated guess. It is what we think is going on, but we don't have a lot of evidence in support of it yet. So I hypothesize that in a couple of weeks, the Omicron surge will go down and we'll be able to go back into the classroom. There's no evidence for that. A lot of that is hope. When you get enough evidence collected in support of a hypothesis, then it can become a law or a theory. The term law is generally used for an explanation of what happens. So the law of gravity. Originally, it was called a law because it was understood that two objects are attracted to each other. We don't really think of gravity like that because we think of gravity as everything falls to the earth, but that's because the earth is so much bigger than everything on it, obviously. So it has more force of gravity. Our modern understanding of gravity, now we're starting to figure out why it works that way. Why are two objects attracted to each other? Why does the giant mass of Earth mean everything falls to the earth? When we understand why, then we start calling something a theory. And this is very confusing for non-scientists. And a lot of people in the scientific community are trying to come up with better ways, other terms to use, because most people think of a theory the way scientists think of a hypothesis. It's an idea. A theory has a lot of evidence in support. It has a lot of proof that that is what's really going on and why that's going on. So when we talk about scientific study or inquiry, we can divide science up into two major types: observational science or experimental science. Observational science, a lot of the natural world is observed. If we're talking about what's going on in an ecosystem, what is going on with wildlife biology, we go out and we observe. Ornithologists like Dr. Newsom here goes out, she watches birds, she learns from what she sees. We do observational research when manipulating a situation is impractical or unethical. So, for example, what are the effects of climate change on giant sequoia trees? You can go and look at the trees and see how they're responding to climate change, but you can't put them in a giant greenhouse and manipulate the temperature and the water and the humidity inside that greenhouse to see what's going to happen. You have to actually observe it. It's impractical. Another question, this would be an unethical test. Does abortion cause breast cancer? First off, no, it doesn't. The way we know this is by looking at two groups of women: women who have had an abortion and women who have not, and looking at breast cancer rates between these two groups. It would be very unethical to force women to get pregnant and then give them an abortion to see what happens. So we just do an observational study. Experimental science, this tends to be more what people think about. It's what you do when you take a lab. Scientists that in experimental research carefully modify conditions. Again, we're learning about the world around us. Things like drug discovery, role of specific genes in cell function, following the scientific method. That is part of experimental science. Now, you don't have to be a trained scientist to do these. Observational science, there is a lot of wildlife biology science that is done by people who don't have a PhD in biology. They have an interest in it. They figure out how to do observations. And in some fields, some of the world's leading experts on certain topics of wildlife are what we would consider amateurs, people who do it as a hobby or because they're passionate about it, rather than people who are paid for it. You can also do experimental science as a non-scientist. We don't generally think of these sorts of things as science, but you inherited a recipe for spaghetti sauce from your grandma, and you think it could be improved by adding more garlic. So you try it. You add more garlic, and you compare that to your grandmother's spaghetti sauce with less garlic. Is it better? Better is kind of a subjective way of understanding things, but that's still a scientific experiment. When we talk about the scientific method, you've probably heard about this at some point. You may have been taught how the scientific method works. I thought I had a slide on that. I guess I don't. The scientific method is not a great way to do science. And it's not how most science is done, but it kind of addresses a lot of the major concepts in experimental science. So the scientific method, people make an observation or they identify a problem. They do some background research. They go on the internet, read some papers, see what's already known, come up with a question. And then they create a hypothesis. So if you want to know how water affects plant growth, you can say, I expect the plant that gets more water to grow faster. And then you actually do that experiment. You analyze the data and see if your hypothesis was supported or disproven from that data. And then you report your conclusions. Reporting your conclusions as a scientist is a very formal process. You write up your results in a specific format, send it off to specific journals. Those journals will send your paper out for what is called peer review. So other scientists who are in the field you're doing research in will read your paper, look at the results, look at your conclusions, and give feedback. They might say, you know, I'm not sure that this proves what you think it proves. Maybe if you did this one other experiment, or they may say, this is great. You've created a great new understanding of something. Or it could be, yeah, your data doesn't support your conclusions and there was a big problem with your experiment. We're just going to reject the paper. It's a hard thing to have a paper rejected, but it's good science. Okay, so I've got some more terms on this page. In an ideal situation, if you're setting up an experiment, you're going to have two groups, what's called a control group and an experimental group. And these groups are going to be kept in the same condition, except for one variable. There's going to be one thing that's different. If you're looking at water affecting plant growth, your plants need to be in the same type of soil. They need to have the same temperatures, the same amount of sunlight. The soil, the sunlight, the temperature are what we call controlled variables. The water is what we call the independent variable. And the plant growth is the dependent variable because it's dependent on the difference in water. So let's go through a couple of examples here. And I'm going to read this one off to you, including the questions, and then I'm going to send you guys off into breakout groups again to answer these two questions here. Jacques loves roses. He has an arch nemesis named Bill, and he wants to beat his arch nemesis in this year's rose growing competition. The winner is chosen based on how large the rose flowers are. Jacques has read that phosphorus content in soil can affect bloom size. He wants to see if this is true, and he really wants to defeat Bill next year. So in order for Jacques to perform a scientific experiment, he needs to first identify the one thing he will change or manipulate, and the one thing he will observe as an outcome. And he puts different individual roses in these two different conditions so he can compare the outcomes. So here are the questions I want you to talk about in the breakout groups. What is the one thing Jacques will manipulate in his rose garden? What is the one thing Jacques will observe and measure at the end of his experiment? This should not take you very long. Oh, I've got to stop sharing before I can send you into breakout groups. That sucks. So I'm only going to give you 5 minutes in the breakout group to come up with those answers. All right, looks like everybody's back. So, what is the one thing Jacques will manipulate in his rose garden?
The one thing he's gonna manipulate is the type of soil he gives to each rose.
Okay, can you be more specific?
So like he'll have two sets of roses and he'll give one regular soil and then the other one it's gonna be phosphorus.
Yeah, good. The amount of phosphorus. Excellent. So we call that the independent variable, which can also be thought of as the cause in the term cause and effect. What is the one thing Jacques will observe and measure?
The growth of each rose.
The growth of each rose. Again, how is he measuring the growth?
Rose blossom size to see how each was affected by the different type of soil.
Yes, that's perfect. And that is the dependent variable or the effect in the phrase cause and effect, because it's dependent on the independent variable. Okay, so when we do this kind of experiment, we have a hypothesis that states what we think will happen. This hypothesis has to be testable. So an increase in phosphorus will cause an increase in the rose blossom size. Now, see. We're almost at the end of class, so I think I'm just going to go through these ideas, these last few ideas really quickly rather than have you guys break out again. These 5 questions right here are questions that you can ask when you're setting up an experiment. You want to say, what is the independent variable, also known as the cause or the experimental? What is the dependent variable, the response or what you're measuring? What would be a good hypothesis? What do you think is going to happen? And remember, this has to be testable. What would be a good experimental group? Remember, we divide a population, a bunch of different individuals into 2 groups. So we're not going to just have one rose plant that we're checking. We're going to have, well, Jacques is just, you know, an average guy with a yard. So he might buy a dozen roses and give 6 of them the extra phosphorus and 6 of them normal soil. And so the experimental group would be roses that are getting the extra phosphorus. The control group is the group that isn't getting that experimental variable. So in this case, the roses that would be growing in plain soil. I mentioned previously that there are also variables called control variables. These are the things that have to stay the same between the 2 groups. When we're talking roses, the amount of water, the amount of sunlight, the amount of temperature, other things in the soil like the amount of nitrogen, which is important for plant growth. So these are the kinds of questions that you would want to ask when you're trying to figure out how to set up an experiment. This is another hypothesized experiment. Kian loves Coca-Cola. He drinks 4 cans of Coke per day. Whew. He's also a little bit overweight. Wonder why? He wants to perform an experiment on himself to see if switching to Diet Coke can help him lose weight. Could we set up an experiment to see if switching to Diet Coke will help Kian lose weight? How do we design this? We ask these questions. What is the independent or experimental variable? Does anybody want to chime in?
Amount of Diet Coke he drinks.
Diet Coke, yes. What is the dependent variable?
How much regular Coke he drinks?
No, that's the control variable.
His weight.
His weight is what we're going to be observing. Exactly. What would be a good hypothesis for this experiment? What do you think is going to happen?
Switching to Diet Coke will make me lose X amount of weight.
Yeah, that switching to Diet Coke will make Kian lose some weight. What is the experimental group for this experiment? This is kind of tricky.
Kian?
Yeah, he is. Kian on Diet Coke would be the experimental group. What would be the control group?
Kian drinking regular Coke.
Kian drinking regular Coke. Very good. Now, what else needs to be controlled to see if the Diet Coke is what's causing weight loss?
His blood tests.
The food he drinks. I mean, the food he eats.
The food he eats, yes.
His exercise,
His exercise, yeah. Because if he changes what he's eating or his exercise, you can't say that it was the change to Diet Coke. Good job. All right. So the quiz is just an introductory survey, so that's easy. And the homework is based on what we were just talking about with setting up experiments. So those are both due before midnight on Sunday. Does anybody have any questions about what we went over today? Or about anything related to this class?
When are your office hours?
Ooh, office hours. Okay, so normally what I do is make myself available before and after lecture. Obviously, we're Zooming, that makes it hard. So I do have office hours by request via Zoom. And on the Friday before each exam, we will have a special office hour / review session. So those dates are in the hard copy of the syllabus.
And do we need to purchase anything?
Purchase? Nope. Textbook is free. Y'all obviously have access to the internet. That's it. That's all you need.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, if that's all there is, I will see everybody on Wednesday.
Thank you, Professor.
Welcome.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
The intro survey, we could take it right now, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Anytime
Professor.
you want.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Thank you very much.